evening. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for April 13, 2022 to order. The time is now 7:09. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We apologize for getting a late start tonight. Item C is our roll call of council members. I'll ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton?
Here.
Councilmember Brocksmith?
Here.
Councilmember Correas?
Here.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Holst?
Here.
Councilmember Molinar?
Here.
Councilmember Morales?
Here.
All right, thanks so much. Under consent agenda, we have items A, B, C, D, and E. These are council meeting minutes, committee meeting minutes, payroll checks, wire transfers, and claims.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Mary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Under committee reports tonight, we have a Public Works Committee, and that is Councilmember Gary Muller. Gary.
Okay, we opened up the meeting, Public Works and Library Committee at 6 o'clock tonight. After the approval of the March 9th minutes, Chris Phillips gave us an update on the Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group and their restoration, riparian riverside buffer between the WWTP and the Skagit River. This will improve habitat along the river. Volunteers have planted over 3,600 trees and shrubs since the beginning of March. It's a really great project. Skagit County Health and Public Health Department has been forming the city's local source control inspections for several years. After some discussion between the Skagit County Public Health and Skagit County Public Works, it has been decided that the regional local source program will be housed in the Skagit County Public Works Department beginning in 2023. The Washington State Department of Transportation contractor working on the Division Street Bridge, which was damaged during the historic flood of November 21, has completed the pile driving and is currently installing the cross bracing. Within the week, they will be rebuilding the timber supports on the outside of this structure, and the project completion should be done by Sunday, April 24th. The proposed amendment for the on-call contract with Weiner and Associates for the completion of the downtown flood wall protection across the Mount Vernon Terminal and BNSF Railroad is for a total of $105,400. This would complete the last section of the flood wall for this project, which is a great thing to get finished up. Next, Chris Phillips gave us some project updates. Public Works brief council on upcoming council items on tonight's agenda. The Alpine Way wall repair last fall was damaged. This wall causing large tree root impacts were discovered and programmed for design. The design is 90% complete and is anticipated to go into construction in early summer 2022 during the driest part of the season. Staff will bring a proposed update to the city's signal maintenance agreement with Washington State Department of Transportation to council for approval in May. The agreement was last approved in 2003 and needs to be made current with existing policies and standards, and the proposed update will be largely the same with only a few minor additions. Wastewater staff has also solicited requests for qualifications for design of a new garage shop to house large equipment, materials, and wash bay, and received one proposal from Carlady Architects, who is working on the scope of the work and fee. Staff were requesting council approve to execute a professional service agreement with the architect in the next coming months. Next, wastewater division, Gary DeRonso gave us, the city is participating in a study called the BioBot Network. The study involves sending in samples of wastewater once a week for 26 weeks to be tested for variants of COVID-19, and participation is free of charge. And it was very interesting to see the discussion on that, just how it affects our sewer treatment. Mount Vernon qualifies for $131,430 in grant funding for a Puget Sound Nutrient General Permit Grant for development of nitrogen or optimization plan. On overview, it was the plan also was provided to council. Next, we had our library, Isaac Huffman. He talked about the wonderful community support they received as part of the Library Giving Day. and over 100 letters campaign, and that came through. Just a great response with that. General updates also included new art kits called Mini Masterpieces, team programming, and upcoming improvements, including new lighting in the library. May 13th, there will be a tech tip for iPhone and iPad and computer users from 1 to 2, just to help people navigate through some of the things that involved in tech. Also this Saturday, there will be a book sale during the downtown, not parade, but festival that we got going on. For the good order, we kind of talked about the classification and compensation study, which is ongoing. And we close the meeting at 7:04.
All right. Thank you very much. We're gonna forego item 2, committee of the whole report, until our next council meeting. If our clerk could make a note of that, that'd be great, thanks. So we'll move on to our Public Safety Committee report. Councilmember Mark Olson.
Good evening. Mount Vernon Public Safety Committee met last Wednesday, April 6th, at 6 o'clock. Our initial point of business was Chief Bryce gave us an update on an $11,000 grant that was awarded to the fire department through L&I. This is for the storage of bunker gear. Our hopes is that we will be able to use those funds as we go through our upgrades at stations 2 and 3 to keep the bunker gear safe, out of contaminants, and away from things that could cause our firefighters to get sick or ill. So congratulations on the grant, Chief Bryce. I know you worked hard to get that. We appreciate the effort for going after those funds that are available. Fire Marshal Barry Kerf briefed us on some proposed changes to our fire alarm code. There'll be clarification on what's a preventable false alarm and what's a non-preventable false alarm. A lot of times, improper installation of a fire alarm will trigger false alarms. What we'd like to do is be able to go out, notify these folks that there's been improper installation, we're getting these false alarms. If nothing's done about that, there's going to be a fine assessed to that after so many calls. But we're also going to clarify on what's a non-preventable fire call. And there won't be any fines associated with those. So there's going to be some language coming forward to council to clarify what our alarm codes are, what the penalties are for false alarms, what truly is a false alarm and is preventable and what's not. So looking forward to having that information come before us. He also is going to be proposing some language to council to clarify what will require the installation of an alarm in a commercial application. Currently, the language is really vague. So if you're a commercial building and you want to put a new door in, it can be interpreted that that slight modification to your building would require the installation of a fire alarm. That's not really what the intent of the ordinance is, and so we're going to make some clarifications on that. And those clarifications will be that if the upgrades to the facility are of 50% or more value of the building, then that will trigger the need to install alarms. We want to just clarify that language, and that'll also be coming before council. We then heard from Jacob Milner from our GIS. He gave a presentation on how he's been working with police and fire to identify hot spots in the city. Some of those in fireworks, some of that has to do with criminal activity. But he's been working with police and fire, and they've been mapping out where our fire hydrants are, where the lock boxes are, where certain infrastructure is, so that when our police and fire are out in the field, they can pull it up on their phone or on their laptop and identify where some of the infrastructure is that they need. It's readily available. It's at their hands. They're also working on identifying some of our commercial buildings that may have flammable or hazardous materials in them. They'll be able to pull that building up on a building, see where those hazardous materials are, and know how to treat that facility in the event of a fire or some kind of a seismic activity. They'll be able to know what's in there and how to deal with that. Then we followed up the meeting with the comp and classification study. We had some robust discussion about that. and we adjourned at 7:50.
Great, thanks, Mark. Next up is our community comments, item B, and so we have both two things. One, the first is a review of emails that may have been sent in by the public, and so council member, I don't know what that came from, sorry, Special Projects Manager, Peter Donovan is here to read any emails that have come in.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Yes, the public still has the opportunity to address Council both in person and in writing. And to do that in writing, the public can email council at mountvernon.gov. I don't know why I forgot our email address. I say it 100 times a day. Council, you had one email from the public. This one was from John Batts IV. And John wrote to you on March 30th and said, to the members of the Mount Vernon City Council, good afternoon. I'm writing to formally request that you, as our elected officials, consider making significant amendments to the Mount Vernon Municipal Code, Chapter 1796. Some background. I work for a corporation that's based in Illinois and on the East Coast. I have been working for this organization since August of 2015, and I have been working remotely since December of 2015. My role with the company has taken on different facets during my time working remotely, but throughout the process, my functions have primarily required that I respond to emails, produce training, slide decks, talk on the phone, etc. Today I received an exempt home occupation permit from the City of Mount Vernon, authorizing me to do the job that I have done for years. I called and spoke with a representative in the Development Services Office, asking several questions like, quote, how did you even know that I was working for Masterflex, end quote. Since I did not initiate the license process, I also asked about how issuing the permit benefited the City of Mount Vernon, as well as about statistically how many of the permits that are issued are exempt versus type 1 or type 2, for instance. Following my conversation and some fact-finding, these are my observations. The vast majority of business licenses issued by the City of Mount Vernon are issued as exempt, meaning there is no money generated from the process, against the backdrop of a tremendous amount of work and expense outlaid to produce those licenses. The issue, upkeep, and research into these exempt business licenses takes a significant amount of time away from the staff and development services team. Time they could devote to other more productive and revenue-positive activities for the City of Mount Vernon. The vast majority of those people and companies seeking to obtain a license to do business in the City of Mount Vernon are those that are doing their best to abide by the law. So the process of issuing business licenses, with so many being exempt, is not contributing positively to the effort to locate and shut down businesses that should either pay fees or not be operational at all. With COVID still around and future restrictions being a real possibility, the number of people working from home in exempt activities is likely only going to increase, thus adding to the burden already felt by the development services team. With all of this, I would respectfully request that the City of Mount Vernon make it a priority to amend the relevant sections of Chapter 1796 to reduce the need for unnecessary business licenses and to free up time for the development services team to focus their efforts on other more important functions. Currently, Chapter 1796 040 applicability and exemptions makes this statement in subsection B. Exemptions: any person or party wishing to establish an exempt home occupation, excluding garage sales, shall make application through the Development Services Department. Exemptions from the provisions of this chapter are, number 1, authors, composers, and writers. Number 2, paperwork and similar activities performed by residents who may have a primary office elsewhere and with no customers visiting their home. 3, services or activities that are not performed at the residence, such as newspaper delivery, babysitting, lawn care, and gardening. Parties for the sale of such items as Tupperware, Mary Kay, and similar services. Number 4, garage sales, subject to the requirements of Chapter 560 of Mount Vernon Municipal Code. 5, for-profit production of produce or other food products grown on the premises within the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District. This may include temporary or seasonal sale of produce or other food products grown on the premises, so long as the produce and food products do not include marijuana. Number 6, hobbies that do not result in payment to those engaged in such activity. And 7, family daycare facilities for 12 or fewer children licensed by the state of Washington. I would recommend the following changes to the code, subsection B, to read as follows. B, exemptions. Any person or party wishing to establish an exempt home occupation, excluding garage sales, shall make application through the Development Services Department office. are allowed to operate within the city of Mount Vernon limits without obtaining an operating license. Exemptions from the provisions of this chapter are, by making this, and then he ends his recommendation there and says, by making this small change, that would immediately alleviate the burden of so many exempt business licenses needing to be issued and maintained by the city of Mount Vernon. If you have any objections to this, please respond with the reasons why and how leaving the municipal code as it is currently written benefits the city. Thank you in advance for your consideration of this request. With my regards, John Batts. And my personal mobile phone number is, I'll leave that part out.
Okay. All right. Thank
That's it.
you. All right, item 2 is our public comments for anyone here in person. If you'd like to make a comment, you're welcome to come to the podium. Please state your name, city of residence, and we'll make comments to around 3 minutes or so.
City of Residence. Hello, Ed Johnson. I haven't been here since '07, and a lot of faces are new. A couple of them not so new, but any event, mine either. Now that I know I can write an email and have that extended version of the comments at least a few more minutes, I'm gonna do that too, because I only have about 44 different items, but the most important to me right now is this displacement of seniors. I've been staying out in the state parks as much as possible to stay away from the pandemic, which is apparently on the rebound. So anyways, that said, these dust masks, FYI, they're dust masks. The virus is 100 times smaller than dust, just saying. I've met a lot of seniors like myself thinking likewise of selling property and just traveling. I've been to 44 states now and 4 countries and Puerto Rico. So I plan to get back out there and do some more. However, I am houseless and considered homeless technically, so there you go. I'm in Skagit, currently at the first step because I couldn't find any safe parking. Imagine that. Thankfully, there was an emergency ordinance put in place that did, nothing. I was actually sad to see that the churches didn't even open up these last 2 years. So that was only one church, the Seventh-day Adventists, had the day center for warming or some such. But, so I think cancel the ordinance and see if everybody brings it back anyways, and we'll hopefully go that route. But right now, the seniors that I have met, and it's probably about 100 or more, plus talking to the state park rangers and so on, there's a lot of people doing this trend, buying RVs, heading out. There's no place to park unless you pay. And a lot of these private entities are saying that you can't stay in your camper van, you must stay in a tent. One guy told me he throws a tent out and stays in his van because it's just the rules. And others are saying that you can't have certain age or vintages and so on. RV parks, most of them are packed out and very expensive. Right now it's $40 a night to stay at a state park with a hookup. $25 for a piece of dirt, throw your tent on. Wow, I can't imagine. I'm an Eagle Scout, been camping most of my life, love camping. Don't like doing the van so much, but in Oklahoma, Texas, you gotta do something because it's so humid. It's just incredibly humid. But everybody there says get an RV. So anyways, my point is there's senior houseless people, and there's a lot of us, and more than I ever thought. I met one man that's been doing it since '77. Okay, and he's loving life, but he's trying to get out in the woods and away from everybody, and it's not easy anymore because people are paving the roads, and that brings me to the beavers and the elk and the deer and everybody else that's being shoved out of the way. I'm going to give them a training course on shooting back and see what happens here because it's incredible. I'm hearing complaints about beaver dams. This place used to be full of them. This used to be a riverbed. Come on now, it does flood. Really? It's a great thing you're doing the flood wall, though. I'm glad to see that actually worked for once. Yeah, I was kind of curious about it. One other thing, who the heck puts any metal green posts in the middle of a road? Mount Vernon did, and I found 2 of them, of 3. I didn't know they put dark green metal posts in a road, Hillcrest Parkway. I turned east off of 18th, or maybe it was LaVenture, one of them. Over by the Red Cross Center. It was at the church, Bethany Church, and I don't know why I turned. It was dark, it was raining, I was tired, and boom, what was that? I don't know. Next morning, sure enough, went back with the police officer, said, now who puts these dark green, what the, should have been white, psychedelic, I don't care, something to identify, here's metal posts here. Yes, it did damage my vehicle, but more funny is the metal posts that I hit with my 3/4-ton van. They are 90 degrees now. So I don't know what to make of that. I just thought it was totally absurd to put them in a roadway, public roadway at that. Maybe it's a private road. Whatever, it's a road. Yeah, so, the first step, I wanted to mention quite briefly, I didn't understand it. I was looking for, an outlet, basically, just to plug in my van for a heater during the temperature. I've never seen it in 30 years, 19 degrees. I've seen it in the 20s, in snow, and I love it when it snows because it warms up a little bit, but, so I was looking for an outlet, and it came to my attention to try the first step. Of course, I had to stay in there. They call them cabins, I call them a tool shed, but it's plenty good enough for getting out of the weather. It really is. However, I feel like I'm in jail. You gotta check in, check out, there's a day pass, you gotta be, surprise bed check. I'm like, what? What the heck did I sign into here? I thought it was just something to get out of the weather, but it's a lot more than that. And then disappointingly enough, just recently I found out they don't really have a program for helping these people reestablish what daily lives is like. In other words, a life plan and how to do bookkeeping and budgeting and so on. Which I would have thought would have been a mandatory thing, but it's not. It's bed checks or, we gotta do them, whatever. So some people are buying hoverboards, brand new in the box. And then one guy, he changed all his plans around from retiring once he got his Social Security disability, which just happened here in the last 2 weeks. And he said, well, that's too expensive, I'm not doing that, so he went out and bought a $1,700 bicycle. I don't understand why he's still there. But this is just, one of these crazy American stories, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I think it's something to be aware of, especially going forward. I'd love to see this First Step program survive and really do well. Right now, they're having a staffing problem, and it's actually an upper management problem, in my opinion. And, but hopefully it'll succeed and get forward. I should have brought some water. But anyways, good seeing you. Any comments, questions? Otherwise, no? Joe, good seeing you. I didn't know that you wore a Washington State uniform in some of the graduation pictures. I just saw that. I'm in class 04. It was class 10 then. But anyways, Rich, see you at Kiwanis.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. All right, any other community comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move along then. There is no mayor's report, but I did want to mention that we do have the Tulip Festival Street Fair this weekend down in downtown. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Should probably turn my mic on because back they're probably freaking out back there. Street Fair again, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I believe it's from 10 to 6 if I'm correct. And then look for parking. I think I would say south of Kincaid is always, you can seem to find some down that way. But come on down and enjoy our first street fair in a couple of years. Be exciting. All right, item C is our council member comments. Any council member comments tonight?
I've got something.
All right, please, Melissa.
So next week, April 17th through the 23rd, is National Volunteer Week. And this week at Rotary, we had a presentation by Arnie Svensson, local resident and business owner, Arnie Svensson Trucking. Back in 2002, Arnie completed the Citizens Academy, a 12-week program designed to provide our community with firsthand knowledge about our police department, operations, and philosophies. Arnie went on to become part of the department's COPP program. COPP members are Citizen Academy graduates who choose to go through an advanced training course, additional field training, and then commit to a minimum of 10 hours of volunteering per month. The volunteers are community members doing their part to make the city of Mount Vernon a great place to live. This has been Arnie's passion for the past 2 decades, volunteering over 4,200 hours and counting. He doesn't want us to get rid of him. Without his dedication and that of 50 other community members, our streets would be a little less safe. Their focus on quality of life includes safer parks, streets, and neighborhoods. They find lost bicycles. They post abandoned vehicles for towing. They assist our officers with traffic control. They assist us with vehicle lockouts. They provide handicap parking enforcement and graffiti abatement. They help with the special events such as the Halloween Downtown, the City Christmas Parade, the Children's Art Festival, and special events that require uniformed policing resources. And oh, did I mention that they're on call 24/7 to assist with crime scene security, road closures, and missing persons. So thank you to Arnie Svensson, my fellow Rotarian Linda Aford, and 48 of their best friends for their service above self and volunteerism to the city of Mount Vernon.
Excellent. Thanks. Any other council member comments?
I do.
Melissa, Iris. What is going going on today. Sorry about that.
I just would like to invite the community to come and join us and support us to keep wellness for the salmon barbecue. It started, it's been on for a couple of weekends, and just remember it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it's going to be a huge help for us because these funds we recollect is for the helping in keeping the parks and a scholarship for students. And I would like to give a special thanks to Mount Vernon School District because they've been supporting us, buying 30 tickets just to bring their staff and support us. And I just would like to ask to the community, come and try our good salmon we have there. You're going to see a lot of welcoming volunteers. And here my colleague Richard is going to be there doing the good salmon and good potatoes and salad. Please come and support us.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no, we'll go ahead and move on. Item D is our committee agenda request. Any committee agenda requests tonight? Okay, seeing none, there is no unfinished business. One change to our new business agenda, item G, which is the approval of a street closure request, has been asked to be withdrawn because the Friends of the Library found a better place, so we would strike that from our agenda tonight. Okay, first up, item A. We're really excited on this agenda item. It is a 2022 legislative update. The City of Mount Vernon is welcoming our 40th District Legislative Representative Alex Rammel, who's going to give us an update on his experiences in the legislature this year. But what I wanted to mention was that Alex was appointed to the legislature in January of 2020, and he represents us well. He has led legislation on increasing energy efficiency in public buildings, coordinating in planning for EV infrastructure, increasing the affordability of homes built using the state's multifamily tax exemption. And I wanted to just personally say he's a representative that communicates with us really well, and he listens really well, and he really showed up to learn about law enforcement reform and help that we were asking for. So I just wanted to personally thank him for that, as well as supporting our capital request for our Mount Vernon Library Commons project. So with that, I'm introducing, giving the floor to Representative Rammel. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. That's very kind introduction. I appreciate it. So I'm Alex Rammel, and representative from the 40th District. The 40th District, if you're not looking at those maps all the time, this corner of Mount Vernon is sort of the southeastern corner of the 40th District. It extends up to Bellingham, where I live, and out west towards into the San Juan Islands. I share this responsibility with the other representative from the 40th District, Deborah Lukanoff, and Senator Liz Lovelet is our senator. We were trying to schedule this, I think last year, Senator Lovelet and I were both here. We're trying to do these in many of the communities that are in the district, and we're also trying to balance travel schedules and still get here in a timely way after session. So unfortunately, you're stuck with only me tonight, but I do just want to emphasize that we work closely as a team and communications with the community, and so that they wish they could have been here, and we'll make sure to communicate anything back that I hear tonight. So I thought I'd just give a couple of minutes of sort of what were the priorities that we took into the legislative session, sort of our House Majority Coalition Caucus perspectives and priorities, a few of those sort of high-level items, as well as the priorities we heard here in Mount Vernon, and a few priorities that we heard from Skagit County as well. Talk for a few minutes about that, but turn over most of the time we have tonight for your questions, and do the best I can to respond to those until the mayor tells me my time's up. So this legislative session was a unique one. We thought we were going to be back, most of us in person. And the pandemic threw us another curveball, and we had to switch back. For at least the first half of the legislative session, most folks were not in person. We're back on Zoom for committee hearings and our floor session. But I think we have adjusted and we figured out how to do that smoothly, as most governments have when we need to. The focus that we tried to bring, so that House Democrats in particular, trying to get 57 of us all onto the same page and steering in the same direction. One of the things that we've done consistently in the time that I've been there has been to establish a series of sort of priority areas. To give a little bit of definition, certainly we do work outside of those priority areas, but it gives us a little bit of a sense of purpose and some definition to the work that we're doing. And so for this year, our priorities, our 4 priorities were strengthening Washington's economic well-being, serving Washingtonians better, advancing racial equity and justice, and addressing the climate crisis. So I'll talk just a little bit about those priorities and what we've done in those areas. Thinking about strengthening our economic well-being, a few sort of top priorities and things that I'm excited to share with you. We know that our small businesses in particular were hit very hard during the pandemic, and we expanded the state's B&O tax credit so that the smallest businesses will no longer have to even file. And I think that's a significant improvement for many of those, some of the smaller companies. We also tried to provide targeted support, grant assistance for companies in the hospitality, particularly hard hit, arts and cultural sectors as well. And then I think we also try to prioritize things that are not specifically focused on the economy, but that are sort of the infrastructure that enables a healthy economy. So for example, last year we worked on childcare and making sure that we got the reimbursement rate for state-supported childcare facilities right, so that folks can afford to operate those facilities, so that parents can afford childcare and can go to work. That's a critical piece. We also prioritized rental assistance. In 2021, we put close to $1 billion into rental assistance, and we kept that off again this year because during the pandemic, there are so many people who have fallen behind. We also expanded that to include utility assistance for folks who are behind on their utility bills. I come from the perspective that when we look at our housing, our homelessness crisis in particular, preventing folks from losing their home in the first place is some of the best money that we can spend. It is so much less expensive to help folks get caught up than it is to help them get back on their feet after they've lost their home. Turning to our priority for serving Washingtonians better, I'll keep talking a little bit more about housing. These were priorities for Skagit County's government as well. Fully funding our housing trust fund. So that's that's capital budget revenue that we're able to provide to local agencies, local governments, community land trusts, the sort of whole spectrum of housing providers to be able to provide everything from affordable home ownership opportunities to emergency shelter to permanent supportive housing, kind of that whole spectrum of housing needs. We know that we're not going to be able to build as much as we need, but I am absolutely convinced that every person that we're able to help with Housing Trust Fund dollars is another person whose life is significantly and measurably better, and so I continue to advocate that that's a high priority for us. We also made significant investments in our school districts, particularly focused on mental health and well-being for kids, supportive positions to back up teachers, nurses, counselors, para-educators, and so we've put nearly $1 billion per biennium, increased revenue to support our school districts in being able to bring in all of those needed support positions so that our teachers can focus on teaching, but our kids are getting the help that they need. We also took important steps to prevent gun violence and mass shootings in our state. We put we prevented, or rather I should say banned production and distribution of high-capacity magazines. And we took steps to prevent unregistered, untraceable ghost guns. Those are important steps to prevent gun violence in our state. Advancing racial equity is our next priority. And in that category, we did a couple of things that I think are noteworthy. The first is relates to our school districts again, making sure that our schools are communicating with parents in the language that the parents are using. I think that's an important step to make sure that all families will be able to connect with their school district about what's happening in their kids' lives and can be part of their kids' education. Deborah Lekanoff was also instrumental this year in passing, first in the nation, alert similar to the Amber Alert or the Silver Alert to respond to the challenge of missing and murdered Indigenous women, so that we have an alert system to help both make sure that we can do everything we can to get all eyes out there looking for those women when they go missing or abducted, but also to increase the profile of a problem that's been sort of below the radar for far too long. Last priority on our list was addressing the climate crisis, and I'll just mention a couple of things that I think are particularly relevant here. The first relates to public facilities. It was a bill I sponsored that is intended to make sure our large public facilities, as they're being built, contemplate an all-electric alternative. There's growing evidence that electric new construction is cost-effective way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's in a couple of cases recently, up in Bellingham and another one in Edmond School District that I looked at. It's actually a way for the school districts to save money over time, and we wanted to make sure folks are taking a look at that. That's for large public facilities, which may be relevant to Mount Vernon in the near future. The other thing that we worked on that's important in that category is advancing green electrolytic hydrogen. So when we think about our region in particular and our reliance for our local economy on the refineries, I'm especially interested in what can we be doing to help those facilities begin to transition to cleaner energy sources and cleaner fuels. Green hydrogen produced with electricity from Washington State's clean electric grid is an important part of that. So made some significant advancements there. And then the last thing I'll mention sort of on our broad priorities, and the biggest thing we did on climate change this year is passing the Move Ahead Washington transportation package. So every 5-8 years, plus or minus, Washington State's sort of funding approach to transportation is that we bring in a set of new revenues and pair that with a set of spending priorities. And then we've been working towards this for a number of years, and this year those pieces came together. We committed just under $17 billion over the next 16 years to this set of priorities. And I'll just sort of mention the high-level items there. Particularly important in this part of Washington State, where we've got a commitment to construct 4 new hybrid ferries, completing that package of 5 that we planned on a couple of years ago. We've now got the dedicated revenue to build them, and that goes alongside the commitment to improve our hiring and workforce retention and training programs to address the challenges that we've seen last summer, and unfortunately, I think we're starting to see again this spring. But we have a plan in place to improve those workforce challenges, which is our short-term problem. But in the medium term, we also need to build new ferries, and we're on the way to do that. The transportation package also fully funds the state's obligation on culverts, fish passage barrier. It commits significant investments, more than we've ever seen before, in transit, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. That's going to reach the streets here in Mount Vernon through things like the Safe Routes to School programs, grant programs that the State Department of Transportation manages that will be available for, like I said, that coming 16 years. And the last thing I'll mention on the transportation package is the, I think, new focus for us in maintenance of our existing infrastructure, our roads and bridges. We're behind on that. We've been behind on that for years. And this time, it is always, I think, most exciting for politicians to be at a ribbon cutting for a new project. But it's actually probably more important, if we're really honest, and it's also better for our economy and better for our communities to make sure that we're maintaining and repairing what we have. And so I think we made the right decision there and really tried to commit the bulk of the funding for roads and bridges, not to new construction, but to maintaining what we have. So those are the things I was hoping to talk about that are sort of our big picture priorities. We'll just mention a couple of other things that I heard from folks here in Mount Vernon. And I would just start off and say it's very helpful to hear from you all and to hear consistent messages from more than one city council member and from the mayor to sort of all sort of singing the same song. That makes it easy for me to know what folks are looking for. And so I heard loud and clear the priority on the Library Commons project, and pleased to, well, I'm not reporting it, you all know, but that has been funded in our capital budget at the $4 million request, and it sounds like the federal money, the last $2 million is in place?
That was voted on,
Okay,
yes.
great.
So, yes.
So excited to see that project coming together and looking forward to seeing it move forward. And then there were, I think, 5 pieces of legislation that we were asked about, and they all really relate to the police reform legislation that was passed in 2021 that we all talked about the last time I was here, and had follow-up conversations with the mayor and Chief Kamek, and really appreciate the time and help in digging into those issues. I will say you're not the only jurisdiction that wanted to have those conversations. And I think we did most of what you all have asked, so that we can go into greater detail if you want, but I think let's say the confusion about what counts as 50 caliber or beanbags in or out, we meant bullets. We now have clearly articulated that's bullets. Beanbags are not counted in the prohibited 50 caliber, larger than 50 caliber weapons. The use of force legislation that limits force to specific circumstances now includes involuntary treatment and other protective custody orders. We heard loud and clear that that was an oversight and needed to be included in the things that law enforcement is allowed to do, and we made that change as well. And then the Terry stops is sort of the shorthand for that question about whether law enforcement is allowed to use force in a situation where there is reasonable suspicion but not probable cause. And I will be transparent with all of you that this is one of the hardest questions I feel like I've ever faced in this job. I did that thing that I hate when other politicians do, which is I agreed with the last person who talked to me, and I switched my own thinking about it back and forth numerous times over the last year. I have come to believe and ultimately voted in favor of the legislation that authorizes those Terry stops, authorizes law enforcement to use to use reasonable suspicion in a greater number of circumstances as that standard, and that passed. The one piece that we did not address that was on your list, or did not address, but did not pass, is the high-speed pursuits legislation. I think that's going to come back next year. We did pass it out of there was a version that passed out of the Senate, a different version passed out of the House, and the two were not reconciled. I think we'll see that come back next year, and we'll keep working on that piece. And then I will just mention two other things and jump to your questions. I think I'm probably over the 5 minutes I told you. But Skagit County asked us to work on the rural economic development funds. You've probably heard about that as the .09 dollars. We did one thing that folks wanted. We have not gotten the other piece that they wanted, and we'll come back on that. We passed it out of the House, but it has not made its way through the Senate. They wanted that timeline extended so that the community would be able to bond against those dollars. Right now, it's set to expire, I want to say, in 7 or 8 years, which makes it hard to bond against that revenue source. I think we have the votes in the House to pass it that way, and we have a little more convincing to do on the Senate side. I will tell you that Liz Lovelet was tireless in her advocacy to try and get it through, and we just need a little bit more time for her to work on a few more colleagues. But we did allow and did pass legislation that will allow expanded use of those funds. So talk to your Skagit County commissioners. Those dollars can now be used for workforce housing along with other priorities. And then Skagit County had identified a couple of top concerns, but I think in terms of budget, but I'll just mention two, the fish culverts for local governments, city and counties. I think the intention is that Skagit County is going to be sort of the model watershed for trying to synchronize the work being done on state-owned culverts along with the local government-owned and operated culverts just upstream or just downstream, so that we clear all of those fish passage barriers in the same stretch at approximately the same time. Deborah Lekanoff is dedicated advocate to get this community that sort of opportunity to sort of show how that work can be done properly into the future. And then the other priority, not as big a deal at this end of Skagit County, but we did get the last pieces of the funding for the Guimas Island Ferry replacement into the transportation budget. That will be the first electric ferry operating in Washington State. So I appreciate the chance to come and connect with you all, share some of the highlights. Look forward to your questions. I really do think this is one of my goals in trying to do this job better and trying to continuously improve how I'm doing it is increase the connection between different levels of government. So this is part of that, but hopefully we'll do a lot more. And looking forward to one-on-one conversations as well.
Awesome, great, thank you. Council, any questions for Representative Remmel? Comments? Melissa?
Thank you, Alex.
Oh.
Thank you for your representation and for all you do over there. And I personally, I would like to give you my special thanks for all the support you give us here in the community for during the pandemic, sending us as much as you could for funds, for vouchers and everything, and supporting all of the nonprofit organizations here in the Skagit. And I do really appreciate it. And this community, farm workers, families, gives thanks to you and all you do over there in Olympia. Thank you very much for all you do there.
All right. Melissa?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you for coming tonight. I know time is valuable, so I really appreciate it. Thank you for your support on our Library Commons project, but even more importantly, thank you for your support for the passage of 1590. Tonight on our agenda will be, hopefully will pass, that will allow an iOS program, integrated outreach it'll add a robust mental health program into our police department, and we could not do it without you, and just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. That's great to hear. I mean, that's exactly what we were hoping that those local dollars will be able to do. So that's the purpose of it. I'm glad it's going to good work.
Any other comments? So lastly, to help to cap on what Councilmember Beaton brought up, we are, with council's blessing, of course, expanding the roles of our social workers in our police department and bringing on mental health, our own, mental health folks, substance abuse counselors, nurse practitioner, and case managers. And we are happy to do that, and we're happy to lead the way because of the need that we see in our community. But I think at the state level, I'd love to sit down and talk with you about how the state can affect change in very deep-seated ways of doing behavioral health. And perhaps when they're funding nonprofit organizations that are providing behavioral health statewide, that we can affect flexibility, hours, accessibility, and maybe change the paradigm of how we deliver services. And so I'd love to help with that conversation outside of session and help you with that. And then also work on anything that could work on housing things in communities of our size, and of course help follow up on the pursuit legislation, which I think would be helpful for our community as well. So, yeah. Great.
Thank you. I'm excited to join in that conversation. I've got a Bellingham City Council member bending my ear a couple of times a week right now on very similar, so maybe we can set up a meeting in the near future and put our brains together. I was excited to read in the Herald about the social worker project here. Appreciate that leadership. I think we're going to see a lot more of that around Washington State, and we're going to see, in future budgets, increased support to try and encourage more local governments to move in that direction for the subset of calls where that's appropriate and right. I think it's got a lot of potential, and I imagine that one of the priorities I want to make sure is that the folks who are already doing it don't get dinged and are able to get what I would say is a leadership share of the resources to be able to keep doing it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Anything else?
I just want to say, Alex, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. Last year when you came, we talked a lot about the law enforcement issues, and I really appreciate the fact that you listened and, met with Chief Campbell and others about the things that we were concerned about, and that action was taken on that. That's fantastic. I appreciate the fact that you're always willing to have a conversation, and even if we don't agree, we can have a conversation, and it's always good. So I thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much
very
for the invitation to be here tonight, and I'm always happy to connect. I think you've all got my number and my email. Reach out anytime I can be helpful on big stuff, little stuff, and those of us in the 40th District really try to make sure that there's kind of no wrong door. So if you call me about something that Deborah Lakanoff knows a lot more about, we'll just make sure you get to the right person, and we really do our best to try and have sort of seamless, coordinated work. So really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item B tonight is Volunteers of America, a Skagit County office overview. And Peter Donovan is gonna introduce our friend Kurt Pearson, who's here. So,
Thank you, Mayor. Hello again, Council. The Volunteers of America mission is to serve people and communities in need and create opportunities for people to experience the joy of serving others. The organization strives to answer the call for our most vulnerable neighbors in Skagit County. And although Volunteers has been operating for a while here in Mount Vernon, City Council has not recently had an opportunity to hear about the good work that they're doing here. So here to update City Council on the local work of Volunteers of America of Western Washington is the VP of External Affairs, Mr. Kirk Pearson.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Well, good evening, all of you, and thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Very good. Well, first of all, it's nice to see people that face to face and being in a public meeting like this. It's sure a delight. And my name is Kirk Pearson. I work for Volunteers of America. We're an organization that's been here in the state of Washington. Next year it will be our 125th anniversary, in which we're very excited. We operate in 3 different counties here in the state of Washington. Our offices we have in King County and Snohomish County and here in Skagit County. One thing we're really proud of are our programs. Really quickly about our programs, we have our 988 suicide hotline, and we cover 32 counties across the state with that 24/7 professionally staffed call line. And recently the legislature allocated $300,000 more so we could expand, because we're going to take in more counties in eastern Washington. We also have the first in the nation a tribal hotline that we're implementing this year, and we're very excited about that. And why I think about it, when we do, we're going to have a ribbon cutting. We'd love to invite all of you to that. But also we have a food distribution center, 60,000 square feet. We're one of 3 in the state of Washington. We have a special designation. It's called a Director's Reserve. And in case of famine, or seriously, like during COVID, when we ran out of food, we're available to ship food across the state. And so we just implemented that, and Mary, I believe you and Mr. Donovan were there at that opening, and a lot of people in Skagit County were here to see that. And we also have a refugee welcoming center. We have the old senior center in Everett. We have that now. We have a long-term lease with the city of Everett, but due to the recent refugees, we're hosting certain days of the week for Afghan refugees, and I hear we're having Ukrainian refugees. We're speaking with Refugee Northwest about that. So that and community resource centers. But something I wanted to talk to you about tonight is here in Skagit County, we have our dispute resolution center. And how many know where our office is in Skagit County? 1, 2, 3. Well, I hope to educate you more, because we're in the Carnation building. We've been there quite a while, and we have our disability services there too, which we help people that have intellectual disabilities. But a little bit about our dispute resolution center. We're the first in the state of Washington in 1984 under the Court Improvement Act. And we've also helped establish 21 other dispute resolution centers across the state. And what are dispute resolution centers? You deal with mediation. And what is mediation essentially? Well, it's a way to, if you could bring 2 parties together without having to go to court, you have a big victory. And the benefits are, you have win-win solutions. You get people together, they create their own solutions. It's very private and confidential. And we work with families, parent teams, neighborhood businesses, landlord, tenant, workplace foreclosure. And we were really used a lot with our rental assistance program. We tied into that, especially during COVID, because there were a lot of folks that weren't paying their rent. And we had that mediation, plus we were able to we went to landlords, we had mediators, and the landlords had to agree, had to get 2 parties together. So if we could provide this amount of money for your rent, can we stay longer? And that's kind of how it worked. And under our dispute resolution, this is the RCW. As you're all elected officials, you're very much aware of the RCW. And we train people too to be mediators. And that's one benefit of our program. And it's very important here in Skagit County. We do a lot of mediation. And looking at it, we began our resource center, or dispute resolution center in 2009. When we started that, and since then, here's the effects of having dispute resolution. If you look at small claims court, we meet twice monthly. We've had, through mediation, we have had a 62% resolution rate. Family mediation, 70% rate. Eviction resolution, the pilot program, we had a 90% resolution rate, which is kind of unheard of and everything. But if I could really quickly give you a success story, may I, real quick? I know I'd have so much time, but it kind of adds to the flavor so you know a little bit about us. We opened up a mediation case for a client who had concern for her 3 young boys regarding visitations with their dad. She explained to me that she has not been able to take all 3 at the same time, as his housing situation was just a small 1-bedroom apartment. His girlfriend and his daughter lived there as well, and the daughter is the only one in the bedroom. Parent 2 and his girlfriend sleep in the living room. She also explained to our resolution person that she'd like a routine, some sort of regular schedule, so she can mark on her calendar, so if the boys can see their dad, and when she knows they'll see their dad, and eliminate the guessing. When we called the dad to see if he would agree to mediate, he was very eager, and he explained to our mediator that he feels like parent 1 just does not hear him. He's concerned about the well-being and feelings that could result from taking all 3 boys at once, and the impact that might have on them if they were to sleep on the hardwood floor, while his girlfriend's daughter is in the queen-size bed in the other room. He does not feel this would be fair to the boys. But within a matter of days, both parties, they submitted documents and were ready to schedule mediation. And through this case, mediation was very successful. They reached a full agreement that included an interim schedule through the summer, and it allowed parent 2 to look for a bigger home, and it helped them create a final parenting plan. This is one example of how mediation works. You bring people together. It's not forced. Both sides have to agree. But our court systems like it. Again, it frees the court. Something, that was really important in Skagit County, and this is what we'd like to do again, but we've had services for the youth mediation, where we've trained other youth to, be mediators and peers with their friends. And we've also had a youth diversion program that we've worked with the Skagit County Office of Juvenile Court. And through that youth diversion program, we've had, as you can see, back in 2018, an 80% success rate. And unfortunately, our program ended when, the funding kind of got cut at that time. So recently, we've been approached by the Skagit County Superior Court, the Juvenile Court, the Prosecutor and Public Defender's Office. They were asking us to implement it again. And the good news, we are looking at funding, and I told you how many programs we want. We're stretched all over, but we'd like to get this going again. That's our really hope, and we're trying to identify possible funding. Like yourself, we go for grants and everything. But if we started up again, speaking with the courts, we'd be taking referrals immediately for probation, at-risk youth, and truancy in schools, and teen court. It's something we'd like to do in the future. And as I mentioned, we want to reestablish that. So we're going to try our best in your community to do that, because when you look at an 80%, rate of success, that's pretty darn good. And, I guess if you're a teacher, that's a B or B plus or something like that. But we want to keep this going. And in closing, we're committed to serve your community any way we can. We're going to try to find dollars for that program, but also other programs. I heard the good representative talk about housing issues. Those are on our heart too. And but like any nonprofit, there's challenges with money and everything. But we've been very, very blessed and very successful, and the strong support that we've received from all the communities that we serve. One thing I will say about us in Volunteers America, it's not about us. And what I like about our director, Steve Corsi, we take this approach. We'll work with other partners. We partner with Boys and Girls Club. I believe we partnered in the past with Community Action on some things. That's the way it's supposed to be. There's no separate nonprofit that's you know, we're number one or anything. We just want to help people. That's our heart, and so that's why I'm here, and I appreciate the time, and I know you have a busy schedule. I was not a city councilman. I used to be a planning commissioner over 30 years ago, and so I know what long meetings are like. But anyhow, I'd open up to questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Kirk, you mentioned a couple of programs there that have been very successful, especially with youth and maybe some of the food distribution. Is there anything that you know of that we have funds that come through the city that get allocated out in a grant? Is there any kind of funds or anything that the city receives, or is there anything the city can do to help with those programs here in the county?
Yeah, you know, we've been very successful, and, you know, with ARPA funding, I'll take a step back. Any funding we receive from cities or counties to support our efforts, we take it very seriously. We operate with a tremendously low admin margin. I don't have the exact number, but I think I don't have that number, but it's really low because we want the service dollars to go out. One thing we have done, millions of dollars went through our office in Snohomish County for the rental assistance, our rental assistance program. And we've had like over like 99% success rate. Plus we audit, you know, the dollars that are going out to make sure that in some counties there were some problems where they had to fold doing the rental assistance program. We were very highly successful because of our directors and the safeguards we put in place. So the ARPA dollars are one. CDBG is another one we look for, but we look to the communities to see how we can help. But if there, you know, if I'm here, if you have ARPA or CDBG dollars, and you know, this is one program, if you want to invest in, we would be honored to work with you on that. The thing is, we want to get this back up. We were approached again by the courts here locally. They know what we can do, and so yeah, that's a way. Also, we do raise money too, and we're committed to do a lot more. Let's say up here in housing. I started in with John Sterling, had that housing consortium. I started being a part of that. We're planning on doing some things here in housing in the future here in the county, and so. Thank you for the question.
Are you aware of any sales tax revenue or anything that we could utilize, possibly utilize to the youth diversion? Sounds like it's, or the mentorship that you explained earlier. That seems like a really good program to keep youth out of trouble. Are you aware of any funds that can be used to enhance that program and help it get off the ground?
Thank you. I have law enforcement here. I'm not sure if they're aware of any grant funding through WASPIC or WACOPS or anything like that, but I haven't heard any at this point. But holy cow, maybe we'll have to have a salmon barbecue to raise money for youth diversion. I don't know, but we're open to everything and anything. We're excited about that, and but I was serious. I would like to extend an invitation when we open up our 988 call center, and if you wanted to take a look at any of our programs from our food distribution center, and it's packed full of food too. 18 bays. When we get serious about shipping food out and working with other partners, but that and you know, any of our programs, we're very open. If you have any ideas what you'd like to see, have you ever thought about doing this in this community or that? Yeah, we're there. And like I said, we work with other groups and partners, and right now we're doing a big thing with the Boys and Girls Club in Snohomish County on a big opportunity in South County there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the work you're doing with the Dispute Resolution Center and this new or re-emerging Youth Conflict Resolution Services. Sounds like a great potential program. Certainly want to, hear that you're kind of seeing how it works with other groups doing youth services and kind of show us that you've mapped that and that you have those partner support, because there isn't enough money to do everything and to reduplicate services. But thank you so much. Volunteers of America seems to be a very big, capable organization, and the more that you can lean into Skagit County and Mount Vernon, the better. And whatever I could do personally, and I imagine whatever we could do as a group, let us know, and we'll strive to do that as best as possible.
Thank you, Councilman. We thank you for the interest. We don't always know, we do get invited to a lot to make presentations, but it's kind of neat. For me to be here in Mount Vernon again, and I'm kind of an old dog. I go way back here in Skagit County. I was a legislator for 15 years in Skagit County, and so I got to be a part of a lot of different things, and with a lot of you people here. And so it's, for me, it's personal. You know, this is my home too. And but I see the need going back. I used to be on the Law and Justice Committee when I was in the legislature, and you know, I did stuff at teen court and with you know, all those different issues. And you see, to try to get the recidivism rate down. That's our heart. And our CEO, Dr. Steve Corsi, that's his heart too. And that's why we've been very successful, because he tells a great story. And so, anyhow, I'm not here to babble, but I really appreciate the time. But you'll expect some invites in the future, and we'd love to show you what we have too.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kirk? All right. Thank you, Kirk. It's
Thank you,
pretty
Mayor.
awesome when someone comes into your office and says, what can we do to make your lives better and the community better? And I appreciated that sentiment, so thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'll have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. All right. Item C tonight is an approval of an ordinance. I believe there's also a public hearing as part of this. And this is amendments to Mount Vernon Municipal Code, Chapter 17.30, which is a public zone, 17.45, which is our downtown districts, and 17.84, which is parking. So Rebecca Lowell from Development Services is here for this item. Rebecca.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So as the Mayor stated, I have got an ordinance before you seeking a recommended adoption for 3 different chapters in our municipal code. The first district, as the Mayor stated, is Chapter 1730, which is our public district. The amendments to this chapter would include clarifying the procedural and the submittal requirements, to create approval criteria that unfortunately haven't existed before in that chapter of the code. And as I've briefed you in committee a few times with regard to this issue, what staff has done is we have taken the approval criteria that we use for special uses and conditional uses and just modified them slightly so that they would fit for a master plan approval as well. And last, to add regulations that would allow the handful of publicly zoned properties that are within our historic downtown area to be developed consistent with what other C1 or our downtown district properties are available or allowed to be developed under. The second set of code amendments to our downtown district were really cleanup. For the most part, really what we've done there is, instead of having development regulations that are cross-referenced into other chapters of the code, we've just laid them out in detail within that chapter. That was something I've done as staff, just after having multiple questions. I know when I get asked a question more than a few times, and if we're in doing a code amendment to a chapter anyway, it just made sense to make that a little bit easier for our applicants to find that information. And then last but not least, for the last set of amendments are to Chapter 1784, which are our parking regulations. And as you'll recall, the city currently does not have development regulations for parking structures, which we need to have in the near term for our Library Commons project. But that won't be our only project that we anticipate having structured parking for in the city over the long term. So it makes sense to make sure that we have development regulations for those types of structures now and in the future. So the procedural requirements for code amendments have been completed. The Planning Commission held a public hearing last Tuesday on April 5th, and they recommended approval of the amendments that are before council this evening, although they did ask for two changes in the ordinance that's before council. So the first change was currently in our public district, when we're approving master plans, the current code has a 10-year time frame. As staff, I recommended that go from 10 years to 20 years. That recommendation was made just, we do have master plans, and the one that always comes to my mind is for the Skagit Valley College, that sometimes they do span that distance of time. But after some discussion with the Planning Commission, their recommendation was that the existing code go from 10 years to 15 years, so sort of in the middle of staff's recommendation. And the second item that they asked for was to the parking garage code. And what they asked for was that a criteria for parking garages be added that would ensure direct light from a parking structure be screened from public view. Now, I know that's something that, just because I've been part of the meetings on the city's project for quite some time now, that's already been taken into account. But keep in mind that these code amendments aren't just for our city project, they're for other projects in the future too in our downtown. And they felt that that was an important criteria to add in there. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the ordinance that is before council. And we'd ask that you also recommend adoption of the amendments that were proposed by the Planning Commission. I didn't outright incorporate those, so if you did want to adopt those, if you wouldn't mind making that part of your motion so that it's really clear, that would be great. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Rebecca before we have the public hearing? Okay. Okay. With that, we'll open the public hearing regarding amendments to Mount Vernon Municipal Code, Chapter 17.30, 17.45, and 17.84. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close our public hearing regarding those amendments. All right. Questions for Rebecca on adoption? This would be ordinance 3846.
Maybe just on the Planning Commission recommendations, and your, maybe some clarity on those. The second one first, so screening direct light, wondering how onerous that is and what the sort of rationale is behind it. Is it like for driving and those kinds of things? Can you just explain that? Do you want us to, are you supportive of that recommendation?
Correct. As staff, I was supportive of that. And with the Planning Commission, the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting really was to make sure that sort of the image that was discussed was, and I'm sure we've all seen in more urban cities, when you go by a parking garage and you get that kind of that really unpleasant yellow or sometimes blue light that shines out from inside the parking garage, which is interesting. And I'll say, until we had our Library Commons project, I didn't notice it as much, but being educated about some of that lighting and how that should be mitigated, I notice it a lot more. I'm thinking you probably will too when you're looking at that. But there are strategies that can be taken that aren't all that onerous to make sure that the light that's coming from the parking garage itself, and it doesn't say it can't be seen, it just that direct light isn't glaring out onto our pedestrian ways, so that it is filtered and taken into account. So.
And I don't know if this helps, but in just the design process and doing some field trips, if things are located near residential properties and they're multi-story for headlights, so they think of designing, walls that come up to block headlights from going out of the structure. And then in the Commons project, in order to do some screening on the outside, is those vertical terracotta pieces that somehow do shield some of that from affecting properties around it. That was one of the thoughts that maybe helps explain some of it too.
Thanks for the background, it's helpful.
Other questions?
I would move the adoption of ordinance 3846.
Second.
Did you want to add with the additions of the planning commission recommendation? Well, that's what, oh, I'm sorry. I'm just saying that's what Rebecca asked about.
So there was.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to add the addition of making sure that the planning commission's recommendations are incorporated.
I'd second that.
Okay, so there was an amendment, okay. There's an amendment on the motion and a second on the amendment, so I'll call for a vote on that. So all those in favor of the amendment, incorporating the planning commission's recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. All right. Now, we'll, the original motion of adoption of ordinance 3846 by Mark and a second by Gary. Any other comments on that? All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Phew, wow, did that right. Okay. Item D is the approval of an agreement with the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County, or EDASC, and our Finance Director, Doug Valesky, is here with this agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Tonight, staff recommends that council authorize the mayor to enter an agreement with the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County for the calendar year of 2022. Each year, the city of Mount Vernon budgets for and provides funding to the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County. The city does not have the expertise or resources to adequately promote economic investments with this nonprofit organization, was formed for the express purpose of promoting and attracting new businesses, expanding existing business, and enhancing trade opportunities for all of Skagit County. The city receives significant benefit from the development and expansion of the local economic base by enhancing employment opportunities for its residents and by creating additional tax revenues. The city has committed $10,000 of financial support to the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County for this agreement for 2022, which has been included in the 2022 city budget. An agreement between our two agencies needs to be approved to confirm the city's funding commitment. So staff recommends council authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement.
Questions for Doug on this item?
If I may.
Oh, go ahead, Richard.
So I noticed in the briefing materials that the executive director made another plea to increase our contribution. I'm curious, we've mentioned several times the desire to continue to ramp up economic development efforts, and it would be really fantastic if we had a dedicated resource such as EDASC or someone else who could be out there, doing more than they currently do, like EDASC. So I'm wondering if you've explored that idea of, there's a contract that's proposed. It's $10,000. Certainly supportive of that. Don't get me wrong. But are there additional contracted services that could help us with economic development at EDASC?
So
if
I
we
think,
had the resources?
during our budget process, Councilmember Brocksmith, we had this discussion about upping our contribution to EDAS, but we also asked EDAS to bring back a proposal of what they would do with additional money. And to date, they haven't come back and briefed us on that. So all we're doing tonight is approving the budgeted amount that was requested originally, that we've traditionally done since I've been on council. I think it's been $10,000. If there's a need or a request for more, I think the council needs to get more information from EDASC, give them an opportunity to show us what the need is, and kind of pitch that program to us.
I think to answer some of the question is, and it's something that I've had some conversations with John about, is it is felt over the years that EDASC has some restrictions around referrals from, say, Department of Commerce on bringing industry to Skagit County. and there's confidentiality discussions around, like letting people know. But what I feel that has been very much lacking is EDASC's understanding of what is actually going on in the cities that it serves, and spending time with the cities and actually the ports of Skagit, Anacortes, specifically. And it feels like the emphasis has long been on Port of Skagit and developing Northern State and all that, which is great, right? So John's very interested in looking at that, making sure he's checking in on things that are going on within the city, how he can support that. Just reached out for the first time in a while last week about an industry that is at the port that would like to look at something in downtown. So I think a lot of it can start with some of the communication so that they know what the city has going. They have some knowledge of properties or things like that, and codes and all of that. And I think that would go a long way, and that's something that's been articulated and kind of started, which I appreciate a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing there. It's hard to learn that without some dedicated resources, but they also have to express that desire and ability.
Right.
So I appreciate that ongoing dialogue.
Yeah, I think too, Tamsin Bell was a really great resource and has moved on, but she helped a lot with COVID, but she also was really interested in, knowing in the city of Mount Vernon, where's the industrial sites, or what are we looking at here? And I think it's just some of that knowledge that we could improve upon in communication, at least as a start.
Yeah,
So.
cool. Well, thanks for the background.
Yeah.
But with that, I would certainly make a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement with EDAS for the promotion of economic development in the city of Mount Vernon.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion by Richard, second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item D is the approval of an agreement. No, wait, E is an approval of an ordinance for a budget amendment. And Doug is here on that one. Good. Doug, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As Chief Kamick has talked to you in the last several weeks about the plans and the needs for integrated outreach services program, tonight we're asking for a budget amendment to actually start the process moving. So just for the record, some introduction and background, quoting from basically Chief Kamick's presentations, but approximately 25% of Mount Vernon Police Department services calls have underlying circumstances related to poverty, homelessness, behavioral health, and substance abuse. Specific segments of our population were found to be highest utilizers, and in 82% of the cases were not enrolled in traditional clinical care services. Their circumstances range from generally self-sufficient but reticent to engage in services, needing structure or support to accomplish daily living activities, or had acute care needs requiring inpatient style services. The Integrated Outreach Services, or IOS program, is designed to change the capacity and capability for the Mount Vernon Police Department to effectively respond and reduce the unhoused population who encounter the criminal justice system. This program will provide an alternative to police officers' responses with non-police personnel to calls where poverty, substance and use disorder, or behavioral health are primary factors versus criminal intent. Provide outreach services, specialists, intensive case management support to offer wraparound services for the unhoused or high service utilizers who encounter the criminal justice system because they are not connected to or inconsistently connected to traditional care providers, and integrated public health services into public safety as a means toward a longer-term goal of transitioning untreated behavioral health issues into a more suitable system. So to fund this program, the 2022 budget needs to be amended to include the following expenditures and revenue sources. In the general fund, the police department, we're asking for a change to the name of the program, level 565.40, from homeless services to integrated outreach services, and increase the budgeted amount as follows. Increase personal services by $188,000 and establish the following positions to be hired as of July 1st, 2022. One program supervisor, which is a reclassification of our current outreach coordinator position. 2 case manager positions. 1 chemical dependency outreach specialist, and 1 mental health outreach specialist. We're asking for increased operating supplies by $57,500 and increased training and professional services by $4,500. In the fire department, an increase of personal services by $75,000 and establish an FTE for EMT slash paramedic slash advanced registered nurse practitioner to be hired as of July 1st, 2022. Also in the general fund, we want to increase the operating transfer in from Fund 123, the Affordable Housing Sales and Use Tax, or the House Bill 1590, by $200,000, and increase intergovernmental services by $125,000 for revenues received from the interlocal agreement with North Sound Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization. In Fund 123, the Affordable Housing and Sales and Use Tax, we want to increase an expense for $200,000 for a transfer out to the general fund. And then in Fund 121, the American Rescue Plan Act expense, increase of capital equipment for a vehicle for $85,000. So as these increases in expenditures and revenues were not included in the 2022 adopted budget, these budget amendments are necessary to complete and properly record these activities. So city staff is requesting council to approve an ordinance to amend the 2022 adopted budget to fund the Integrated Outreach Services Program.
All right, that was a lot. Thank you, Doug. Any questions for Doug from the city council?
Doug, I really appreciate your presentation. This isn't an unexpected amendment to the budget. We actually had these discussions with Chief Kamick during the budget process. He explained the programs that he was working on. He's worked with fire department also to integrate those services and to better give support for some of the most vulnerable in our community, but also some intervention in there. So council knew this was coming. We knew it wasn't going to be cheap, but we also know that the state has failed in their mental health, or their services to mental health, and we've seen that reflected both on the street and in the county, throughout the county. Somebody needs to take up the slack. We have the resources to do that now with some of the funds that have been made available. So thank you for your presentation. I'd like to thank the chief for his work and coordinating with both police and fire to put this together, and I think it's going to be a great benefit to the community. So if nobody else has anything else, I would move the adoption of 3847.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Richard, did you have something?
Just a clarification. So I appreciate moving the vehicle expense from 1406 to ARPA. Was that in the approved ARPA spending plan already, or this would be a new allocation from the unallocated ARPA?
This will be new, so it's just allocating $85,000 of that unallocated portion.
I can't think of a better place to find it, so I just wanted to clarify for myself that we hadn't talked about it before, and we're starting to dig into the second batch of funding. So, but that's good by me because it's an important part of this program.
Good thing to point out, because Doug did that. And I'm like, wait, we haven't talked about the second check yet. But that's on the calendar to come to council and really look at what we had initially thought we would do with it, and then we've got the next one. So that'll be on the calendar soon. So
Snake it by.
The other thing, that there could be some other funding based on settlement conversations from other things that council's involved with. And so in the future, there could be other mixes of funding for this service as well. So, but Councilmember Bean.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the state legislature for passing 1590, which has enabled us to move forward with this program in our police department. We will now be providing compassionate care to the most needed in the city. This tax that council approved is generating, projected this year, at $870,000, and 40% of that can be used towards a program such as this. And so this is a turning point, I feel, in the city of Mount Vernon in policing. We have fabulous policing. Everybody knows how I feel about that. I think that this program is spot on, and is much needed, and I'm very proud to be part of this passage of this tonight.
Great. Any other questions or comments? All right, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Doug. As Jennifer's making her way up, I also want to make sure that we recognize the staff in the police department, and Chris is going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Sergeant Ben Green was the one that initially started the conversation. But there was a group, so it was Officer Chantel Van Dyke, Officer Brian Reed, Sergeant Ben Green, of course Aaron Von Femp, and I might be missing somebody. And Lieutenant Mike Moore, who really worked on this and did research, and so wanted to make sure we gave them a shout out by name as well. So, all right, great. Item F tonight is the appointment to the Arts Commission, and our Parks and Enrichment Services Director, Jennifer Berner, is here for this. Jennifer.
Good evening, Council. So this evening, we are requesting Council approve the appointment of Damon Morris to fill the vacant position that will expire December. The memo on the front line there is wrong, 2024. I got it right on the second paragraph, but missed it on that one, so it would expire in 2024. Damon brings with him just a diverse background in arts, with really an emphasis in theater arts and performing arts, which is something on the Arts Commission. We don't have a lot of folks with that type of background, so I think he will bring some good diversity to our Arts Commission, and so we're recommending that he be appointed to the Arts Commission.
All right, any questions for Jennifer on this? Right.
I'll move that we approve the appointment of Damon Moore to the Arts Commission.
Right.
Damon Morris, sorry.
Second.
All right. Motion by Mary and a second by Iris. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And then we're going to skip over item G as requested, and item H tonight is the approval of an agreement with Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group. Jennifer.
So just to bring this one back to you, we kind of talked about it at the last Parks update, but wanted to bring it back for official passing this contract and getting it through so we can get the project started. Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group was awarded a grant through our RCO, which is our State Recreation and Conservation Office, and to conduct riparian stewardship projects at Edgewater Park. The landowner, which is us, the city agreement is required because the property is of the city's. Skagit Fisheries is going to be working on our property, helping us with that. So that's why this landowner agreement is in place. Between 2022 and 2025, Skagit Fishery plans on conducting riparian restoration projects at Edgewater Park. The fisheries will provide ecological maintenance and support restoration efforts at the park on up to about 24 acres of that. What's important to note is that we will be requesting them to actually give us a map of what areas they're going to be working in, so we know what those areas are, because we're going to be responsible for the next 10 years for maintaining those spaces. So we want to make sure we have a real clear understanding of what they're going to be out in the park doing, so we know how to make sure we can adequately maintain those going forward. I think the important piece here is we know with Edgewater Park, we've got some challenges there, and trying to get those trails and walkways so we have some of the invasives gone and you can have better sight lines. People feel safer out there walking. It's going to just really make that park a much more usable park, and then it's going to make it easier for our staff to come in and be able to maintain those spaces when we've been working partnership with a group like Skagit Fisheries to help us get those spaces to where we can better maintain them. So if there's any questions, more than happy to answer those for you, but fully support working with Skagit Fisheries with this grant project through RCO. It will really benefit the city out at Edgewater Park.
All right. Questions for Jennifer on this?
I'm gonna move approval for the mayor to enter into a landowner agreement with Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Gary and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, item I tonight is the approval of an agreement with Trantech Engineering. And because Mr. Bullock is at a conference, we have our a director, interim director, Chris Phillips for Public Works. Chris.
Mayor, I'll answer to anything. Good
Okay.
evening, council. So before you tonight is a professional services agreement for the 2022 Street Improvement Program Design Services. Staff recommends entering into a professional services agreement with Trantech Engineering for engineering and design services for the 2022 Street Improvement Project. The project includes grind and asphalt overlay of existing pavement, full depth spot repairs, adjusting existing utilities, upgrading deficient ADA intersection ramps, installing permanent pavement markings and other work. The street segments selected for these improvements are arterial streets listed there on East Division between Wall Road and Big Lake Road, Anderson Road between Old Highway 99 to the I-5 Bridge, and North 18th Street, West First Street to College Way, as well as neighborhood streets on East Fox Hill Street, North 35th Place, and North 35th Street. Trantech Engineering submitted an excellent statement of qualifications for the project and has been determined to be the city's current preferred candidate to provide the required engineering services. And it was a unanimous decision with myself, Bill, and Dean from Public Works in reviewing the 3 contracts that were submittals for that. The design is expected to be completed within the next 3 months, with construction anticipated in the August-September timeframe, and the scope and fee for these design services is not to exceed $187,000. City staff requests a motion to approve authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Trantech Engineering for engineering design services on the 22 Street Improvement Project in the amount of $187,000.
All right, questions for Chris on this? Melissa?
I have a question. Chris, the work on East Division Street,
Mhm.
will that, the Woodside community up there has had some concerns about having a crosswalk across from their neighborhood over to,
That-
will this address that?
I do not believe it will, because I know that's been brought up as part of the Traffic Safety Committee, that we have looked at that, and at that particular time, it was not something that we deemed necessary at that point.
Okay, will this be putting in a left turn lane when traveling west from?
No, all this is just doing is just
This is just,
resurfacing.
okay.
Resurfacing. Think of it that the newer streets that are around there and around that roundabout area basically are new. They're not gonna get touched. This is everything else that would be going in along that if we touch it, we are gonna be taking care of the ADA and the sidewalk replacements associated with that.
Okay, I just wanted
Oh,
that,
sure.
that clarification.
Mhm.
With that, no one, Richard?
Just a
Richard,
quick
go ahead.
question. Is there a map that goes along with these? It's not in the briefing packet.
I can provide that
After the fact, that'd be
after the
great,
fact,
thank
but
you.
Sure, this is all part of that pavement preservation plan that's been approved by the council.
Yeah, I
6-year
might have
that-
seen it
That
earlier.
6-year tip, these are the roads that were associated with that. And again, the 2 closest years that we have, 2022, 2023, we feel pretty good about, because we've already had the pavement preservation information provided to that. So that's been updated and briefed to council previously, but I will make sure that you get that information, so you can see that.
Sorry, Melissa.
Oh, want me to go ahead? I'll make a motion that council authorize the mayor to enter into the contract with Trantech Engineering.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion by Melissa and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item J is the approval of an agreement with CTL Electric. Chris is presenting this as well.
Hi, thanks, Mayor. City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter in an agreement with CTL Electric to complete and replace the existing non-energy efficient lighting with LED lighting for current and future space utilization. Facility Division began a robust LED light replacement program back in 2019-2020. prior to COVID, economic impacts to the city general fund, City Hall, the Public Works Admin Building, Fire Station 1 Equipment Bay, and a variety of city-owned streetlights were replaced and upgraded with LED energy-efficient lighting. City Council authorized funding in 2022 budget for a variety of facility renewal projects. Development Services, or the Facilities Division, in cooperation with the library, came up with this project, and it is the next long-term conversion project. This project required considerable amount of research that included in-depth analysis of 3 different library construction phases and the subsequent light fixtures, ballast, and proximity lighting replacement solutions. And this will meet not only the current use of the building and increasing the lighting efficiency there, but also the future use. So when the new library commons place comes in, if you're thinking of what gets remodeled in the building, this is one less thing you will have to worry about, because the LED lighting will be in place with that. Can't say much about the flooring or anything else, but the lighting is gonna be taken care of. The city received the lowest bid from CTL Electric. They partner with Puget Sound Energy Business Lighting Incentive Program, which reduces production costs by $24,651. The city, sorry about that, audience. The city share for this project is $46,564, which will be split between facilities and libraries' 2022 council-approved appropriation. Total cost for this project is $71,215, and the models estimate that the cost of this project will be paid back in about 3.7 years. So decent return on that.
All right, questions for Chris on this item?
Well, we all saw the graphic visual of the lighting in the library in Isaac's presentation tonight.
Yes.
So I personally would be happy to recommend that we authorize the mayor to enter an agreement with CTL Electric.
Second.
All right, motion by Mary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item K is the approval of an agreement with Shelter Belt LLC. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends council approval of a professional services contract with Shelter Belt. The attached contract is for professional services provided by Shelter Belt to provide critical area restoration work for the city. Shelter Belt has provided maintenance and restorative activities in the following watersheds. You've got the Caution Creek, the Caution City Lot, and the Caution Left Bank ecosystems, the Baker East and West ecosystems, the Logan Creek ecosystem, and then Draper Valley Farms site preparation. The department has contracted with Shelter Belt since 2015, and the contract has normally been under $10,000. In this particular year, their professional services have been increased with the number of opportunities that we have within those particular beds, and the city's obligation requiring critical area maintenance and restorative efforts. The contract will not exceed $24,000, and in the contract, we had it broken down via each one of those ecosystems, the amount of money that they would be doing to complete those restorative efforts. And city staff is requesting approval for the mayor to enter into contract with Shelter Belt Incorporated.
All right, questions for Chris on this item?
I motion for the approval of professional service contract with Shelter Belt.
Second.
Motion by Juan and a second by Melissa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Item L tonight is the approval of an ordinance regarding classification and compensation study. Our Human Resources Director, Erin Gator, is here to walk us through this particular item.
Good evening. I'm here again regarding the class and comp study. So just to give a little bit of background and history, the city has not conducted a comprehensive class and comp study in over 20 years. Non-represented positions have out-of-date job descriptions, or some don't even have job descriptions. The FLSA status, the overtime exemption, has not been reviewed in the recent past. Our current salary structures are not equitable. They have different differentials and step increases. So in August of 2021, council approved approved us to sign an agreement with public sector personnel consultants to conduct a comprehensive class and comp study which covers all of the non-rep employees, the Teamster represented employees, and the non-commissioned police employees. The consultant, public sector personnel consultants, was tasked with presenting to City Council and to union representatives the nature and scope of the study. They were tasked with reviewing, revising job descriptions for each employee, and that covered 109 non-represented employees, 48 Teamster employees, and 12 police non-commissioned employees. They were also tasked with reviewing the FLSA exempt status for all of the non-represented positions, reviewing and proposing new salary structures, and reviewing benefits, including the health insurance and leave accruals for the different groups. As part of the class and comp process, all employees covered under the program were asked to complete position analysis questionnaires. The consultants interviewed all of the employees to fill in the gaps between their position analysis questionnaires. And then the consultant requested data from 14 agencies that are either comparable or competitors to the city of Mount Vernon. They prepared a new salary schedule for each of those bargaining units, the non-represented, the Teamsters, and the Police Guild. They actually combined the 3 current salary grids for non-represented into one. They made recommendations regarding the FLSA status for all of the non-represented employees. And then they made recommendations regarding implementation of the study results to management and to council. So I'm here tonight to recommend that council adopt an ordinance that implements the classification and compensation study for the non-represented employees. As you are aware, the non-commissioned police and the Teamster represented employees will have to negotiate the implementation of their study results.
All right, we've had lots of conversation in committee, and so I will ask if there's questions for Aaron or conversation with our council at this time. Richard?
I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 3848 to implement the CNC study for non-represented employees,
Okay.
just to get it on the table.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
And I wanted to follow up, thank you, Councilman Morales. Just that, you know, we've started this process a year ago, and this group knows how valuable the staff are to the city and what a great resource, and we wanted to ensure that we're bringing wages up to market rate, because we want to respect that and also show the value of our staff from us, and importance from us, and retaining staff. So very important. Thank you for leading the study, and thanks to the council members for spending so much time reviewing it. There's in any large study like this that sets a path moving forward, there's going to be things that aren't perfect about it, and so we're going to continue to discuss some of those and continue to refine them. And I'll keep an open ear in mind to all the suggestions of the council members, but I think we all agree that it sets a great foundation, and there'll be improvements along the way.
I'd like to make
Mary?
a proposed amendment to Councilmember Brocksmith's motion, that we adjust the police chief up 1 step from the proposed
Step.
yes, thank you.
Mhm.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, just so that I'm clear, the amendment, this is gonna get tricky. The amendment is to adjust the police chief up 1 step from the proposed implementation.
Yes.
Okay, and then 1 second the amendment, okay. Any other discussion?
So I would like to speak against that amendment. Not that I don't support our police chief, not that I don't support our fire chief. Actually, I believe that they're in the wrong pay grade, and I think that they need to be bumped up at least one pay grade. Bumping up one step for one individual may take care of a short-term deficiency, what I see as a deficiency. But I believe by bumping them up at least one grade would be a long-term cure to this. I believe that both our police chief and fire chief should be at a minimum of step or grade 41. We go grade 41, 42, and yep, there's a 43 there. And I think that they should be in that 41 or 42. I could definitely compromise and go with a 41. I think that the amendment that Council Member Hudson has offered is just kind of a short-term fix to a long-term potential problem. So if this amendment is defeated, I have an amendment I'd like to offer.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate all the work that has gone into this. I appreciate the discussions that we've had. Sometimes it's challenging because we are talking about people's salaries, and staff is part of the gallery of watching the conversations. But I do believe, for me personally, that council's role is to set policy and is to establish that policy. And I believe that public safety is warranted of a higher range than the range 40. I understand that this is a professional report, but by the documentation that we were given, our police chief was not even placed at a market midpoint for that position. The 5 department heads that are in there the span is over $16,000, and to me that's a big span. And by placing both of our chiefs at a higher level, what it does is, number one, it shows that we are prioritizing public safety. But number two, it also gives our mayor the opportunity that when the city is looking to hire a new police chief or fire chief, that there is more bargaining power for us to make sure that we get qualified candidates. Not that we wouldn't in this range, but I just feel, for me personally, that it is a statement for us, that public safety is a priority, and it does give us, what it's doing is giving us more on the back end for down the road. And so that's where I am. I don't know if anybody else has any comments.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. There is, okay, I forgot to do this right. So there is motion and a second. There's also an amendment with the motion and a second. So we will take a vote on the amendment first. Amendment by Mary, a second by Juan, was just adopting as adjusting the police chief on the implementation of one step from what the current suggested implementation is. So with that, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Okay, we're gonna need, I might need a voice vote on that one. We do a polling, so Juan or Councilmember Morales, is it a yay or nay
On which part?
on the amendment?
It was an aye, a yay on the amendment.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Nay.
okay.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the amendment passes then, so now we will vote on the motion from Councilmember Brocksmith, second by Councilmember Morales, adopting as presented, now with the amendment.
Actually, Madam
Is that
Mayor, I
right?
have an amendment I'd like to offer.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So, I believe, as Councilmember Beaton said, and as I've stated numerous times, I believe that our police chief and fire chief have one of if not the biggest responsibility of the city, and that's keeping our public safe. Whether it's through the delivery of ambulance services, the prevention of fires, the prevention of crime. As we adopted ordinance 3847 tonight, we're going to be dealing with mental health issues. There's a huge responsibility that comes with public safety and the services that both the fire chief and the police chief deliver. I still believe that they are in the wrong pay group. I believe that those two individuals, those two positions, these aren't individuals, these aren't personal relationships that I have with the current the current chiefs. This is all about the position. I believe that that position deserves to be at least a grade 41. And I would offer an amendment to move those two positions from a pay grade 40 to a pay grade 41. That's a compromise for me because I've been advocating for 42 for a long time, but I will compromise and go with a pay grade 41. I think we need to say that public safety is the #1 priority in the city of Mount Vernon, and those that are in charge of public safety need to be recognized for the work that they do.
All right, so there's a motion on amendment from pay
Second.
grade to 40 to 41, all right? Second by Melissa. Discussion on that. Richard?
Yeah, I'll just speak against the motion in that I don't think there's anybody up here who's not 100% supportive of public safety. That I'll speak for me. I think it represents some of the other folks on the council that we feel like, you know, it's not one position, that public safety is the result of the whole department and multiple departments. Even outside of police and fire, it takes a team and a system to implement that. And we paid for a wage study, and these two positions are in a fair market wage structure that was recommended to us. And we addressed with the First Amendment an increase to the police chief, because Councilmember Beaton pointed out something that seems like they're placed below market, so we addressed that. So, you know, I've loved the passion of my three seatmates over here pushing for that, but I think we're paying a lot already for police and fire because it is a priority for us, and we're at market. And if there's ever an opportunity or a need from the mayor when she's recruiting, you know, at some point way in the future, then come back and ask us, and we can look at adjustments at that point.
Okay.
I think that's you know, for the benefit of the public, to know that we've had this discussion for several weeks now, and we're all working together to try to hear each other, and so there's just different perspectives here is all.
I'd like to add to the discussion as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to review for the public, last year in July of 2021, the city had approved a study to look into particularly this issue. This study was independent. The city ended up paying north of $70,000 for this study. Now that we received the study, now the city council has examined it and then studied it for ourselves as well. But I think it's important to note that it does establish equitable and fair ranges for the different types of personnel that are at the city. To the public safety point, let's review carefully really what public safety really is. There's several elements that comprise a city. Yes, it's fire. Yes, it's police. It's also development services. It's also finance. It's wastewater treatment. Let's just imagine in a situation where our wastewater is not functioning properly. That would be public safety, right? Same thing with any road. If a road fails or if a bridge fails, that too would also be public safety. So I just want to go ahead and review what really public safety really is. And it's not just, you know, two elements. It's a variety of elements that keeps the public safe, that keeps cities functioning well. So I'd just like to add those pieces to the conversation as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gary, are you looking at me?
I guess some of the frustration I have had is, I mean, I'm hearing, this is just an outside observation, having been on a lot of these studies for years and years. I don't necessarily always agree with what the consultants say, and what I'm hearing out of this, some of the group is that this is, what do you wanna do, throw it out? No, we don't wanna throw it. I take it as a recommendation from these people, and sometimes they're on. We had recommendations for waste management. We sat there and disagreed about a lot of that. We have recommendations from horticulturists, that are telling us what to do with their trees. Totally disagree with a lot of what I'm hearing on some of that. But if I just went with the so-called, what they are calling experts on everything, I think we get recommendations from these people, and we study them, and I know everybody has studied it, so I'm good on that. But I wouldn't just start saying, they know everything about everything, because I'm sorry, I've seen it over the years, they don't. And we debated on our fire station, on some of that stuff too, and so, just my thoughts.
All right.
I just want to say thank you for that perspective, Gary. I appreciate it.
Okay.
So for me, as we went through, we found some errors throughout the study. A lot of those errors have been corrected. I believe it's council's decision to prioritize the list. It's the mayor's job, and it's within her purview to put those steps in place wherever she wants to, but I think it's council's responsibility to set the range, the salary range. And I still believe that public safety, police and fire, the people that are out protecting our public daily, day in and day out, our firefighters, our police officers, they're represented. We work with the union to negotiate their wages, and they're compensated, basically guaranteed to be compensated likewise with other jurisdictions. When we look at our police and fire, since I've been on council for 10 years, I've watched police and fire evolve. We didn't used to deliver ambulance service with the fire department. That's something we've taken on. That's an added responsibility. We didn't used to have a social worker, an embedded social worker. We brought an embedded social worker on. Now we're expanding that program, and we're expanding the responsibility of medical services, both to police and fire. There's an added responsibility that goes with the positions of police chief and fire chief that I think deserve a recognition above what they've been placed at. And so I still believe, I've lost sleep over this. I thought, okay, I'll just go home and I can live with that. No, I can't, because I truly believe that the position of police chief and fire chief have a special place in our community to keep our community safe. The public, individual people. When you call 911, you expect an ambulance to show up if you're having a heart attack. If your kitchen's on fire, you call 911, the fire department's gonna show up. Okay, there's one person that's in charge of that. If that doesn't happen, there's one person that takes the heat for that. That's the chief. When you have a bank robbery or a shooting in a mall, when you call 911, you expect police to show up, and you expect them to be able to negotiate hostage situations. There's so much that has gone into, and that we've added to the police department to assist and keep the public safe. But there's one person that's responsible for all that, and that's the chief. And I think to not take the two public safety officials from within the city and set them at least one pay grade higher than the balance of the city, I think it's a mistake.
All right.
I have just one little thing.
Go ahead.
I do appreciate my fellow council members they're very passionate about this, and I really do appreciate that. I don't necessarily agree. I think we've all studied the materials we've been given. We've talked about it over several meetings, so I think we've all heard everyone's opinions. I think we all know how everyone feels about this. A council member, Hulse, just said there's only one person that would be responsible if there was a shooting or a fire or whatever. It's the chief. Well, you know, it's also the mayor is gonna be the one that's gonna be held responsible for everything. That's where the buck stops, is at the mayor. Definitely, there is responsibility there, I hear that. Any department, the department head is gonna get it, and then it's gonna go to the mayor. So that's where the buck stops, in my opinion. So I just wanna say that this has been a very interesting and difficult couple of weeks with all this conversation, because we're all very passionate about how we feel. And I wanna thank my fellow council members for their passion and their opinions.
All right, with that, then there is an amendment that is a motion and a second, and that amendment is to increase the pay grade of the police and fire chief from grade 40, which is presented, to 41. So I'll ask for, I think I'm gonna do a roll call on this one too. That might be the easiest. So, all those in favor say aye.
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 And all those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So we'll do a poll on that one. Okay, so, sorry. Councilmember Morales, would you start us off there?
Can you recite it?
Yes, this would be voting on the amendment to increase the pay range for police and fire chief from 40 to 41.
Nay.
Okay. Councilmember Mulliner?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
All right, amendment fails. Okay. All right. We're back to motion from Councilmember Brocksmith, second by Councilmember Morales, adopting the salary schedule as presented. There is an amendment that passed to adjust the police chief to a step higher in the same range for the implementation of the study. All right. With that, we'll vote on.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. All right. The vote now is to vote on adopting the salary schedule as presented for non-commissioned, with the amendment that was passed to adjust the police chief to a higher step 6, than what was outlined in the implementation plan. Same range, but a step higher than what the implementation was presented as.
Putting him at what?
Step 6.
So he would be above market.
Okay, everyone clear on what the vote is? All right. With that, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Erin.
I just want to take 2 seconds to say thank you very much to Erin for being so patient with all of us. And for the mayor, that might be the most complicated,
That was?
convoluted vote that I've ever been part of. You did it quite well.
Well, thank you very much. And I also want to reiterate, I know, and council's been fascinating, and it's admirable to watch, because this could have gone very differently with a different group of people, and it could have been much less respectful, but I want to appreciate all of you for expressing your opinions, but also being very civil about it, because it doesn't always go like that, so thank you for that. All right. With that, we have completed our regularly scheduled agenda items. I'll ask our city attorney if there's a need for an executive session.
Yes, there is. Before I begin with that, I just want to merit the mayor's comments. I've been doing this for 20 years, and this council does very well in being respectful, deliberative, and following the rules of procedure, because I did not want to be ever accused of being a registered parliamentarian and having to make those calls. I would invite the city council at this point to meet in executive session for a period of 15 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. When public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or adverse financial consequence to the city pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 1I, and moreover, to consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease. When public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of decreased price. However, final action, selling or leasing public property must be taken in a meeting open to the public pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 1B. Again, 15 minutes, and then we would adjourn. No final action after.
All right, thank you. We'll be adjourned into executive session at 9:24.
Could you entertain council and let us have a 5-minute break?
Oh,